President Muhammadu Buhari says commissioning of the 1 million bag paddy rice pyramids shows the country is steadily advancing towards self-sufficiency in food production. The president at the pyramids unveiling in Abuja advised Agricultural Commodities Association, yet to participate in the Anchor's Borrowers program, to do so in support of the nation's food sufficiency target. President Buhari says he is glad the country's integrated rice mills have increased from 15 to more than 50. And is positive more jobs will be created when 2 additional ones in Lagos and Katsina begins operations. Lara Folayon reports.
1 million bags of rice paddy make up these magnificent pyramids, described as one of a kind on the continent. Farmers who grew this huge volume of milled rice are beneficiaries of the Central Bank of Nigeria's Borrowers program, and it serves as repayment for their loans. Millers around the country have been mapped out to uptake these paddies, and sales of their output will be closely monitored in a bid to check the commodities price.
The program speaks loudly in its giant strides as it has increased access to finance by our rural farmers who before now were virtually excluded from the financial system.
Already, the Borrowers program has helped cut down rice importation, a far cry from what obtained in the past. The erstwhile 1.8 million yield per hectare of rice before the program has also become 6 million tons. The country's production of rice has grown to 9 million metric tons per year.
By 2016, Your Excellency, rice imports from Thailand had fallen to just only 58,000 metric tons. As at the end of 2021, they only exported 2,160 metric tons of rice to Nigeria, thereby saving Nigeria foreign exchange and helping to preserve jobs for our people.
The goal is now to build on existing successes in rice production.
The job is not done. We shall not relent until the availability of rice as a staple food is also at the most affordable rate for ordinary Nigerians. That's the next agenda in this campaign.
Our citizens farm in vain. As far as the use of manual energy to farm, your yield will be low. The truth is that in advanced world, like Thailand, like Japan, you are looking between 10 and 14 tons per hectare.
What we cultivated during the last wet season, Mr. President, is millions of hectares. Millions of hectares. In Gombe alone, we cultivated more than 100,000 hectares.
Rice paddy pyramids of this kind, though not of the same magnitude, have been previously unveiled in parts of the country. They are a major fallout of the Central Bank of Nigeria's Borrowers program, which was introduced in 2015 to support farmers of all kinds of commodities and also impact the agricultural value chain. Lara Folayon, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, joining me now via Skype from the United Kingdom to assess the impact of this development on Nigeria's agricultural space. He's a researcher, an agribusiness economist, Dr. Matthew Ojo. Dr. Ojo, good afternoon. It's good to see you today.
Good afternoon, Tolu. Nice to be back here.
Yes, first, immediately after this lunch, I had a chat with you because I was interested in getting your views. So, 1 million paddy rice bag launched in Abuja. We saw it yesterday. And to me, I would say it seems the CBN's intervention is paying off. How does this come to you?
Well, first of all, good afternoon to our viewers. I want to say this, Tolu, that anyone who is genuinely interested in ensuring food security for our country, anyone who has a stake in the agricultural sector and who has longed for a period where Nigeria can feed itself should be genuinely happy for what we are seeing now. Why did I say this? I am saying this because you could see that efforts are being made, especially from the angle of the central bank. And just like I said at the last time you interviewed me, the fact that the Borrowers scheme is having some teething problems here and there should not be cloud that important aspect that it is contributing to the agricultural production space in Nigeria. And you can see what was showcased yesterday. I think before now they've had something like this in Kano, and then it was a Kitty, and now in Abuja, although the one in Abuja has 1 million bags. Okay, so I'm happy, and it's very heartwarming if you want to know what my reaction is.
The Anchor Bora scheme, according to the figures we got yesterday, has supported more than 4.8 million smallholder farmers across the country, and 23 agricultural commodities: maize, rice, oil palm, cocoa, cotton, cassava, tomatoes, and livestock. All of this are to be harnessed from this move or this initiative by the Apex Bank. Now, do you think that more needs to be done? Because many would argue that the price of foodstuff, the price of rice, even rice that we're talking about here, still remains on the high side. So what do you think? A particular example, someone is saying that how much is the minimum wage and how much is a bag of rice? So when is this going to start to reflect on price? Are we not through the transition period, if there is any, for us to get food sufficiency in this country or achieve food sufficiency?
Yes. Yeah, let me say this. What the CBN is doing, and what we need to understand, is to bridge that gap of making funds available to smallholder farmers. And so what is happening here now is what used to constrain farmers from producing rice, and like you mentioned, a very important staple food crop in Nigeria, and with a capita consumption of around 34 kilograms, according to PwC, is to ensure that we shore up our production of rice. What we need to understand is, in the entire food security spectrum, what we are saying is addressing only the availability aspect of it. Just like you said, we still have to contend with the issue of access to food itself. We still have to contend with the issue of affordability, which you mentioned, and then we can now start talking about nutrition down the line. So CBN is doing a lot in that aspect, ensuring availability. And we need to now balance what the monetary aspect of the economy is doing with the fiscal aspect. And that's why each time I talk, I always mention those saddled with the responsibility of ensuring food security, first for the nation at the federal level and also at the states. Now, if CBN is facilitating access to finance for smallholder farmers, the question you and I need to ask is, what is happening in the agricultural sector space? I'm going to come down to the price issue. What is happening in the agricultural space? What is funding like? Okay, it may interest you, Tolu, that since 1999, that we return back to democracy, the highest percentage of our budget going to agriculture happened between 2008 and 2009, where we had around 5.3 to 5.4% of the budget allotted to agriculture. Okay, that was during the Yaradua's era. Now, since the inception of this present government, the budgetary allocation to the agricultural sector has not gone beyond 2%. It has always been 2 and sub 2%. In fact, the last one is around, I think, 1.8%. Now, the one for 2020 rather is 1.8% of our budget. So when you don't finance the fiscal aspect of the agricultural sector, and you have production going on in just selected food items, that will affect the price. The price, as we're expecting, will not drastically come down. I did explain certain things. If we fund, it will address issues like maybe the rural roads. It would address issues that has to do with how food moves from where it is produced to where it gets consumed. Nigeria is ratified the Maputo declaration in 2003 to ensure that 10% of our budgetary allocation goes to agriculture, and also look at ensuring that annual growth of around 6%. We are nowhere to be found in that era. So what the CBN is doing now might look like progress, but for it to be sustained, that's where the federal government and the state government have to come in. That's where they need to address the issue of how do we sustain this growth. You see, the CBN can only do so much, and you cannot take it away from them that what the CBN is doing is impacting somehow in the area of food availability. But you have to also move this food. Okay, let's just take, for example, you produce this bag of rice somewhere in Kogi or somewhere in Abuja, and you want to move it to a place in Ekiti. It's going to go through the roads, okay? The transportation might even over time erode whatever gain we may have achieved in terms of trying to bring down the price of production. So these are the things we need to address. These are the things that needs to be considered. States, like you also know, some of them have gone to sleep. Let's look at it. How many states in Nigeria have budgetary allocation to agricultural sector up to 5% or 10%? We just seem to believe that there will just be some miracle somewhere, food will be produced somewhere and be brought to our states. So price will not immediately go down because what we've just seen is just the production aspect going up. Fine, maybe the cost of production might come down. But if the cost of taking this same food item to where to be consumed is not properly addressed, we might not see that much significant difference between what is produced in Nigeria and what some people still try and bringing it to the country to sell.
Dr. Ojo, let me follow up with the states issue which you raised, because clearly I saw the governors of Ekiti, Ebonyi, Kebbi, Cross River State at that event, and they talked about affordability and technology. Those were the two strong words I was able to get from them. They said a lot, but affordability and technology. Now you're talking about states. What more can the states do, specifics, to support the FG in achieving this goal?
First, I like the word specifics that you mentioned. State government should first wake up to their responsibilities and ensure that the promise of making food available to citizens within their states is kept. And that goes down to the commissioner who is in charge of agriculture. Number one, look at the crops that your state have comparative advantage of producing. What can you do concerning those selected crops you've identified, and see how you can shore up production, one, then make finance available to farmers within. I don't know how you want. Maybe you want to work with the CBN on this anchor branch scheme, or you facilitate a way of making funds available for the production of those selected crops within your domain. Shore up the production. Then you can address the issue of accessibility. If it is produced in a local area in the state, the roads that link major roads and major markets has to be looked at. Now, what I think is even important in this whole discourse is, if we address production, then we come down to transportation, because from production up to the point where it is consumed in households. So can state government start thinking of how to bring in the private sector to operate in that space? Can state government find a way of ensuring that what we use for processing some of these our food commodities are upgraded? Look, in about, I think it was around 5 or 6 years ago, I was involved in a rice research. It has to do with water management and rice cultivation in Nigeria. I won't mention the state. I went to that state. As big as that state is, the rice mill that we have in that village was using local methods to still process rice in this time and age. And these are some of the areas that state government can come in. So if you have a well-planned strategy to lead in the production of crops that your state have comparative advantage of producing, you are contributing in one way or the other largely to the food basket of the nation. One, you're also providing employment to your young citizens. Two, when you bring technology in, you innovate that space, and when you innovate that space, you have youths rushing to play their part. So that you can. There are so many things that state government should do, can do, but they are not doing now. So look at it. Is it only those 3 states we just mentioned that can produce rice? Rice can grow in so many other states. But it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a way of thinking that we can spend money on something else rather than food production. If state government don't back up what federal government is doing or what the CBN is doing, there's no miracle that is going to happen anywhere. This food crops might be cheaper where they are being produced, but in those states where they are transported to, it will still be more expensive.
Now, finally, Dr. Ojo, let me ask this question this way. We ban importation of some foodstuff into the country, but we are yet to get to a point where we can even feed ourselves as a country on this same set of foodstuff. And at the end of the day, we are left in the hands of smugglers who smuggle it into the country. We see the customs trying to, get them. We hear hundreds of thousands of bags of rice being, on our borders and all of that. What can be done, particularly with regards to this? Or is it an issue of chicken and egg? Because we don't know which comes first. Do we get to the point where we are sufficient before we ban? Or what do we do so that we get it right and we reduce smuggling in this country?
I think that is a simple question with a simple answer. What we are doing in Nigeria is sometimes policies come up and they are based on sentiment and they are based on politics rather than being based on data. It's because data that is up to date, that's where that's another ball game of its own, whether Nigeria has quality data that can really be relied on. But where they are available, they tell us what to do. So if you know that your production compared to your consumption has a very wide gap, if you place a ban, you're only creating space for smugglers to operate, because they will still bring in these food items anyway. So that is how we need to operate as a country. If you remember a few months back and even years back, CBN took some measures, and after some time they had to revert, because you need to consider how to occupy that space. Don't create a space for smugglers to operate. So I will say this: we don't go ahead and ban until we know that we have shored up internal production to a level where even if you ban, it won't affect people that much in terms of price. But when you have not shored up your production of such food commodity or food item, and you go ahead and rush, maybe because you are looking at this drag or the pool is having on the foreign exchange, we will be doing ourselves a lot of harm. So my take is this: you don't have to ban before you look back. What is the data telling you? If the data is not quality enough, then spend money, get data, you'll be informed, and whatever policies or decisions that will be taken thereafter will be from a very informed position.
Well, it will be interesting for us to get the benefits of Nigeria's agricultural sector because of the land and all that we have. Dr. Ojo, in just one word, what is your projection for the agri space in 2022?
Well, I don't see that the growth for the agri space for 2022 will still be marginal. I'm looking at it might still be sub 2%. It might be higher than the 1.22 that we saw in the third quarter for 2021. But let me just say this. It's interesting that we want growth to just happen in that sector. Meanwhile, the funding itself over the how many 15 years or thereabout is not up to 5%. We can start talking about growth when we have more funding. That is not to say that funding is directly proportional to growth, but it contributes a lot to ensuring that you see the kind of growth that we want for the agricultural sector.
Dr. Matthew Ojo, he's a researcher and agribusiness economist. Thank you so much for your time on the show. We really appreciate this.
Thank you for having me, Tolu.